Good morning. This is John from the Springs Mennonite Church. Good to be with you today. Here we are just about in the middle of July. Wow, we are further into this year and we're closer to the next year than we were when we started this year. In other words, you're closer to Christmas than you think. You better get yourself moving. In fact, if you go into some of the stores, they already have the Christmas stuff out. That seems a little strange to me. And maybe we'll do it one year in this church. Haven't yet, but I always had this crazy notion that we ought to have a Christmas in July celebration, and we sing Christmas hymns and do Christmassy things, just to just to get people excited. Well, this passage I'd like to share with you this morning talks about some of these kinds of things. It talks about being excited. It comes from Galatians chapter 5, and it's begin with verse 13 and 14 actually. It says this: For you have been called to live in freedom, my brothers and sisters. But don't use your freedom to satisfy your sinful nature. Instead, use your freedom to serve one another in love. For the whole law can be summed up in this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. Here in this country, in this culture, we talk a lot about freedom. It's important to us. I think that's a good thing. People talk about my freedom. Well, sometimes my freedom hinges and depends or imposes on your freedom, and then that's a different matter. Our country has said all along that my freedom takes precedent as long as it doesn't hinder yours. So freedom is a precious gift, and we are one of the few countries in the world who codified that in our national documents. And I'm glad for that. I've lived in places where that wasn't true, and I don't have any desire to swap places. But yet, freedom requires responsibility. It says so here. Let me read it again. For you've been called to live in freedom, but don't use your freedom to satisfy your sinful nature. Instead, use your freedom to serve one another. Just because I can do something doesn't mean I ought to do something. Let me say that again. Just because I have the freedom to do something doesn't mean that that's a good thing to do. I have the freedom to tell anybody what I think of them at any moment. It's in our it's in our holy books, First Amendment, freedom of speech. I have the right to tell anybody that I want to that they're a so and so. But that's not a good thing to do. I mean, I guess it is if you just want to vent your anger or you want to demonstrate how vile you can be. But sometimes what I want to do conflicts with what I ought to do. I'd like to go buy a new truck. Now, there's nothing wrong with my old truck. In fact, I really like my truck. But I've had it a few years and I'd like to go buy a new one. And I have the freedom to decide that. Of course, when I get home, my wife might have a different opinion about that, but that's another issue. I have the freedom to do that, but that's not it wouldn't be a good plan for me. It'd be spending money just for spending money so I could drive around in a newer truck that's going to do the same thing my older truck does, which is get me from here to there without any real repair bills. Now I'll get a few more gadgets, and so I can play more with the truck, but I don't play much with the truck. I just drive it. So even though I have the freedom to do that, doesn't mean that's a good plan. And it says here, don't use your freedom to satisfy your own sinful nature. There are a lot of things that you can do that are not godly. And some of you that I'm talking with know you've done a bunch. All of us have done some. Maybe we haven't done the quote biggies, but we've still done them. And so this passage says, use your freedom. You have the freedom to choose. Use your freedom to serve one another. You can choose whether to serve someone else or to serve yourself. Nobody's going to force you to make that choice. Now, the law is going to say that you cannot choose to drive on the left side of the road. And the law is going to say you cannot drive when you've had too much alcohol. And if you do those two things and something happens, you're in big trouble. But in this case, you and you alone get to choose what you're going to do with your life. Are you going to use it to serve others? Or are you going to use it to serve yourself? Now, I know some who serve themselves. It's all they ever think about. That's all that's important to them. And I've always felt it must be a real difficult thing to live, knowing that you can never make a mistake. Instead, God wants us to recognize our mistakes and use our choices to help others. The last part of this section that I read puts it this way. For the whole law, all 700 and I think 33 rules in the Old Testament, the whole law can be summed up in this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. Now, there's some people who don't love themselves, so this is going to be really tough for them. And I would suggest that you need to start loving yourself. You need to talk to God and clear up whatever you need to clear up so you can see yourself as somebody worthwhile. And if you're in that boat, please do that quickly. You don't have another day to waste thinking you're worthless. But if you're not in that category, then think about your life as a gift from God to help others. And that help might be something small, might be something big. If I were a multimillionaire, which I'm not, I'd love to be that so I could give money away. I mean, for me, that's the purpose of money, to give it away, help other people. I think that would be so much fun to be able to do that. But I'm not a multimillionaire, so that option is off the table for me. I can give a little bit to a few, but that's all I can do. I just think it'd be really cool to go to the store one day and just anybody who comes through the line pay their bill. When they ring it up and they go to get their credit card or their money, whatnot, say, "Excuse me, I got it here," and pay. I think that I have so much fun doing that. And maybe some of you can do that. If you can, do it. You'll, you'll get excited in the process, and you really will help a lot of people. So I hope today that you will use your life for the purposes that God gave it to you, to love your neighbors as yourself. Will you think about it? And if you have a prayer concern or a need, let us know. We'll do everything we can as fast as we can to help meet your need. Thanks for listening. God bless you. I'll talk to you again.